Welcome back to The Weakest Explorer, where today, the most dangerous thing in Dawnwell may be one deeply offended scholar. Cassia can barely produce enough force to annoy a candle, so naturally, the ancient dungeon decides she is fascinating. By late morning, Bramblegate receives Cassia Veyne, scholar, dropout, and current enemy of sensible luggage. She arrives carrying enough scholarship to crush a porter, which is convenient because she has refused to hire one. The save is flawless, smug, and achieved with approximately zero spare dignity. Odell makes the traditional mistake of offering practical assistance. Cassia answers like kindness is an oral examination, and Odell has already failed it. Then Gravity submits a follow-up question. Her magic has almost no force, but the aim is insulting. Odell recognizes Academy technique. He also recognizes the broken seals dangling from her belt. One word closes that subject so hard it nearly bruises the doorframe. She enters the guild like the building has spent years waiting to be corrected. A volunteer finally appears. Cassia immediately threatens the volunteer. Odell watches disaster climb toward his records and decides this is now everyone's problem. Upstairs, Cassia needs less than a minute to find the guild's oldest mistake. The books survive. The guild's reputation is less fortunate. Apparently, Bramblegate has spent decades building history on ancient plumbing. Odell invokes royal historians, which only makes her look happier. Cassia produces receipts, grammar, and the expression of a cat discovering unattended cream. That is when Rowan's party arrives, just in time to witness a professional execution by footnote. Rowan asks if they are interrupting. Everyone with survival instincts knows they are. Cassia meets Rowan and chooses violence before learning his name. Brienne responds in the dialect known as very polite threat. Leora spots the trick immediately. Cassia bites first, so rejection cannot surprise her. For half a second, the performance slips and the actual reason shows through. Odell finally asks the useful question. Her answer turns the beginner dungeon from a cave into a machine. And while the guild hears arrogance, Rowan hears a pattern he has already been measuring underground. Odell moves the discussion somewhere arguments can punch a target. Cassia builds a formula so elegant even Brienne stops looking annoyed. Every angle is clean, every breath timed, every piece of theory annoyingly perfect. Rowan notices she corrected for a floor crack nobody else bothered to see. She rewards the observation with an insult, which may be the closest thing she has to applause. The buildup looks expensive enough to erase the target and possibly the room behind it. Cassia takes the stance of a woman about to vindicate her entire life. Odell braces, Brienne braces. The target, tragically, has no union representation. Then she releases an offensive formula Academy lecturers would frame on a wall. And out comes one spark. Not a lance, more of a strongly worded needle. It travels perfectly straight, giving the silence plenty of time to become personal. The result is flawless. The damage is technically present. Brienne asks the only fair tactical question. Cassia chooses the strongest available defense, a statement nobody can legally dispute. The room recovers first, and unfortunately, it recovers as a comedy club. Cassia has heard this laugh before. That is exactly why she pretends it cannot reach her. Rowan does kneel, though not for the reason she expects. He checks the residue because tiny does not mean simple, and Rowan has built a career on suspicious details. For the first time, appraisal looks less knowledgeable than the person using it. Then the system gives up on naming the spell and settles for admitting it is brilliant. Cassia recognizes surprise. She just assumes it is the cruel kind. Instead, Rowan describes the one thing nobody at the Academy cared enough to notice. That question comes out quieter than every speech she has made today. Rowan is not omniscient. He is simply very good at noticing what the world forgot to disturb. Rowan answers advanced arcane theory with a map held flat by cutlery. Cassia examines his life's work and diagnoses it as a paper emergency. The notation is barbaric. The measurements are annoyingly consistent. He protects the map with the solemnity other men reserve for family swords. Cassia asks politely in the sense that no laws are technically broken. Rowan accepts the challenge because self-preservation remains optional. She starts with the confidence of someone about to prove a farmer wrong in under a minute. The farmer's boot lengths line up. Cassia's expression does not. Then she finds the same ratio hiding in a scholarly margin nobody understood.
Rowan adds another observation, casually making several Academy theses obsolete. His ugly marks stop looking random and become part of an engineered spiral. At this point, she is close enough to insult the map at a molecular level. Rowan catches the charcoal and, more importantly, the exact moment her confidence changes sides. The Academy did not miss the pattern, it edited the pattern out. Leora enters just in time to find Cassia treating the paper emergency like scripture. Cassia concedes the evidence while preserving the right to prosecute the handwriting. Having discovered Rowan is useful, Cassia immediately tries to purchase the useful part. Rowan rejects enough money to buy equipment that was manufactured this century. Cassia doubles the offer because negotiation is easier than imagining she was rude. He refuses the premise, not the price. That distinction lands harder. Brienne adds the practical problem. Their brilliant employer can barely inconvenience Straw. Cassia retreats to rank and money, two shields she understands. Leora asks gently, which gives the question nowhere to hide. For once, Cassia has no clever answer because the Academy trained her to be correct, not rescued. Rowan closes the route and leaves one door open. Cassia finally asks instead of orders. The dungeon mystery can now survive the meeting. Odell returns with paper, ink, and the optimism of a man separating two territorial cats. Rowan starts with the part Cassia tried to purchase around. Cassia edits the contract and insults his methodology in the same stroke. Efficient. Rowan's next clause removes the luxury of sounding certain when lives depend on it. That one costs her pride, which is probably why it matters. Brienne writes the rule every scholar believes is aimed at some other scholar. Cassia narrows the language, but she gives Rowan the final safety call. Leora adds the clause that should never have needed ink. Cassia reads it again, perhaps because nobody has written her into that category before. Rowan signs without offering party membership, loyalty, or anything he cannot promise. Cassia signs and immediately warns everyone not to enjoy it. The agreement is official. 4 enter, nobody owns anybody, and Odell would like his scholar count unchanged. Before dawn, Cassia prepares for a dungeon by attempting to bring the entire concept of reading. Her luggage submits a formal objection. Cassia guards the mess like someone has tried to steal it before. Leora does not argue, she simply saves Cassia's knee and leaves the pride untouched. The warning is correct, which is becoming an inconvenient theme today. Cassia thanks her in the only language currently installed, criticism. Leora answers softly and puts a finger directly on the bruise. For one quiet beat, the sharpest woman in the room has no edge at all. She does not confess fear, she gives Leora the nearest fact. Leora offers respect with conditions, which is exactly the kind Cassia can accept. Brienne begins the readiness interview with a surprise projectile. The spell is precise, the ball remains committed to its career. Cassia catches it late and files a complaint with the universe. Brienne's answer is unfair, practical, and therefore difficult to insult. Cassia counters by finding a real flaw in the shield line. Brienne checks and discovers the scholar is irritatingly correct. Brienne takes the correction and keeps the boundary. That is leadership without theater. Cassia finally enters the formation, though she insists on calling it geometry. Brienne gives her a lane and removes debate from emergencies. The ball lands dead center. Brienne does not smile, but the suspicion becomes slightly more organized. At first light, Rowan returns to the kingdom's easiest dungeon with 1 healer, 1 shield, and 1 scholar who considers easy a personal insult. Brienne claims the anchor position before Rowan can invent something creative. Cassia greets the dungeon by measuring its front door. Leora quietly prevents scholarship from cutting off its own circulation. Rowan lays out the formation in chalk because apparently this group needs visual aids before breakfast. Cassia discovers she has been assigned the tactical position known as valuable and fragile. Rowan distinguishes her from luggage with exactly 1 responsibility: generous. Leora tests the distance like someone who intends to bring every difficult person home. The contract gets them through the checkpoint. It does not make them a party. Rowan enters first and immediately studies the gutter. Cassia has accidentally validated his favorite hobby. For one clean moment, the temporary 4 look almost official. The dungeon will correct that impression shortly. Then the daylight closes behind them and the ratios begin repeating underground. The upper floor still looks friendly, but its arches are beginning to disagree with the guild map. Rowan finds a route marker that did not technically walk anywhere and still changed address. Cassia confirms the mark stayed put. The corridor did not. Leora adds biology to the argument, because ancient machinery apparently also lies with plants. Rowan measures water speed with string, knots, and a complete disregard for dry sleeves. The crude cord and the Academy divider agree again. Cassia is running out of ways to resent this. Brienne stops them for something neither map nor formula noticed: a wire across the floor. It is not a trap built by people. It is a root holding up a very ambitious rock. Cassia attempts field research. Brienne applies the contract. Rowan solves the hazard with a spike because advanced civilizations remain vulnerable to hardware. Leora repeats the rule in a tone so gentle it somehow becomes mandatory. Cassia obeys the retreat call and demands formal recognition for this historic event. Beyond the hazard, the corridor presents 3 doors and one tiny architectural lie. Rowan picks the door that somebody worked hardest to make boring. Cassia's ratios agree. The false ordinary door leads somewhere Dawnwell has worked very hard to forget. Cassia identifies the script and, for once, does not sound pleased. Rowan marks the safe edge because ancient architecture rarely includes helpful railings. Cassia copies the first symbol exactly while Leora supplies steady light. The instant nobody looks at the wall, one stroke changes places. Cassia begins a translation of a sentence that no longer exists. Brienne hears the room answer beneath their feet. The chamber draws a circle around the place sensible people should avoid. Cassia discovers the ancient wall has edited her notes in real time. Leora identifies when the discrepancy appeared, not why. That is enough to make Rowan interested. Rowan stops reading the symbol and starts reading the people watching it. His first experiment is simple, observable, and deeply unfair to Brienne's eyes. This time the rune stays put. Cassia's pencil does not. Rowan creates one controlled gap in observation. The symbol changes during the blind instant, and the floor mechanism advances with it. Rowan solves the impossible rune by noticing the one moment everyone stopped noticing it. Cassia turns the moving lie into 4 honest snapshots. Rowan builds overlapping sightlines so the chamber cannot change everything at once. Brienne confirms the scholar is protected before allowing any ancient language heroics. They read the rune like 4 people describing different parts of the same dangerous animal. Rowan connects the language to the mechanism beneath them. Cassia finally cracks the sentence, and the phrase, "path below," should concern everyone more than it does. The team rotates attention instead of bodies, keeping the formation intact. The entire ancient lock contains one target exactly suited to her embarrassing amount of force. Cassia prepares Vector Lance again, this time with no audience left willing to laugh. The tiny spark hits the only point in the room where tiny is enough. The ancient code accepts her precision and finally stops blinking. The spell is still weak. Holding perfection, however, is exhausting. The door does not open outward, it descends. Rowan sees the second meaning 1 heartbeat late. Cassia releases the spell. The chamber has already accepted the command. Rowan calls retreat exactly as promised. The floor declines to cooperate. Brienne anchors the first collapsing seam with steel and stubbornness. Leora catches Cassia before the scholar can disappear through her own translation. Cassia abandons the books instantly. The contract is already changing her priorities. Rowan gets hold of her and gives the least useful instruction available above a bottomless hole. Naturally, Cassia looks. Naturally, the answer is worse. Brienne holds the plate for one more breath, but her repaired body and replacement shield are not invincible. Leora forms a human chain while begging the anchor to abandon her post. Brienne obeys the retreat call. The safe ground vanishes before she lands. The entire formation folds toward the same opening, clear and catastrophically fair. Brienne catches Leora, completing a chain attached to absolutely nothing stable. For one impossible second, they remain connected in the exact order of the formation. Then the chamber removes the last argument with gravity. All 4 go down together, and somehow, Cassia still finds time to review the map. The beginner floor disappears above them, and there is no visible way back. Beneath Dawnwell's beginner floor is not another cave, it is a city, and our 4 idiots are falling straight into it.
If you want to see how they survive the landing, like, comment, subscribe, and continue with episode 8.